Welcome, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Lynn Berger, host of Lynn Berger Interviews Remarkable People. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Vanessa Aronson. Vanessa is a strategic advisor, educator, community leader, and much more. And you will hear about the much more today. Vanessa, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Lynn. This is so wonderful to be here with you.
It is wonderful. So take me back to your earlier years. Did you know what you wanted to do?
I can remember knowing that I wanted to be in public service from a really young age. When I was in kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Ulrich, asked the class if anyone in the class wanted to be the student council representative. And she described a representative as someone who listens to their peers and tries to help them, and address their concerns. And I think that really appealed to me. I was a very small child, always, the tiniest in the class. I wore glasses from the age of 2. I had some vision problems. I also had some mobility problems, so I had braces on my legs. So I was kind of a nerdy, awkward child. And I think the idea of being a representative and being able to address concerns and really help people and represent people was empowering to me. And so I remember sitting in my little tiny chair, and I remember my hand shooting up. And that was sort of the beginning of this sense of, responsibility or a desire to be a person who finds solutions to problems. So for the rest of my elementary school career, I continued to run for student council. 4th grade, I ran for treasurer. 5th grade, I ran for vice president. This continued into middle school, high school, college, and beyond. But I never knew what that really meant beyond student council.
So brave of you. It was such a...
It was brave in middle school, I'll tell you that. But it was sort of just the thing that I did. It was never... It was just me. It was part of being me. And but it had nothing to do with politics. It was separate from politics. My family...
Well, in 2nd grade.
Right. Well, and my family was not political at all. I grew up not knowing what a Democrat or a Republican was. My family didn't vote. I knew that there were elections, but that was completely separate to what I was doing in school. It wasn't until high school I went to the library to look up what a Democrat and a Republican were, because I heard these words.
Right.
And so I remember being a freshman in high school and sort of reading the definitions and trying to find examples and sort of align that with sort of my worldview to figure out where I fit in that picture. So as a child, I think I always was really interested in government, but not through any type of political lens.
Okay. Well, we'll find the politics later in this interview. So then what happened at college and beyond?
So actually, I'll back up a little tiny bit. So I grew up in a suburb of Chicago and always had big dreams to see the world. So that was just not something, though, that was part of our family experience. I've shared with you before, my father died suddenly when I was 9, and that had real economic implications on my family. My mom was a nurse, but then became a stay-at-home mom when she had my sister and me. So after my dad was the sole breadwinner of the family, and so that kind of was a big ripple effect, for our family. And the idea of traveling or going abroad was not something that was seemed within our reach. But it was a dream of mine. And so my junior year of high school, well, I guess it would have been my sophomore year of high school, I decided I wanted to study abroad the following year. And my mom...
In high school?
In high school.
Was
Yeah.
that unusual at the time?
Oh, absolutely. Well, our high school, we hosted foreign exchange students at our high school, and one of my neighbors would host them at her home. So I think that's how that idea came.
You.
Was like, oh, that's really cool.
Right.
So I remember meeting someone from Germany, meeting someone from Spain, and I thought, hey, I want to do that. My mom, there were programs, I can't even remember what they're called, like the People to People or something. But again, that was like economically not within our, within reason for us. But I did find a program. This is like the very beginnings of the internet.
I remember those times. I was a little older.
And I found a program that I'm not sure if it exists anymore, that allowed students on their own to become foreign exchange students to another country. And my mom was like, you figure it out, and if you can figure out how to do it, what can I do to stop you?
What wonderful advice, because as you'll learn, and as I know Vanessa very well, she figures things out.
So I did. I raised the money myself. I worked as a lifeguard from early in the morning, doing swim lessons at 7 o'clock in the morning through late at night, like parties at, pool parties. And then I fundraised before I even knew what it was. I made packets of my high school transcript, letters about why I wanted to study abroad, and mailed them to all of the different community groups in my area. I mailed them to my congressman at the time and said, help me study abroad. And I got a few donations to help me study abroad. So I ended up enrolling in a program called Nacelle Open Door, and they to study in Spain. And they found a host family for me in Cadiz, Spain, which is in the southern tip of Spain. But my high school didn't know what to do with this. They were like, "What you want to do? What? How is that going to impact your enrollment?" So I dropped out of high school.
Oh no, I didn't know this part. Well, we have to get on with this, Vanessa.
Anyway, so the point is, when I was overseas, so I arrived in Spain in August of 2001. So I was in Cadiz, Spain with my host family during September 11th. And that is what first introduced me to the world of diplomacy, and sort of ignited, like, if I wanted to be in the government, maybe that's the part of the government that I could be a part of. So that's really what inspired me. I ended up going to college at the University of Chicago for political science. And while I was there, happened to meet someone in a theater class who told me about this amazing fellowship with the State Department called the Thomas R. Pickering Foreign Affairs Fellowship, which doesn't quite exist in the same way now, but I applied for the fellowship and earned a spot my second year of college.
But how did you drop out of high school and then go to college? Is that hard?
Okay, so I came back. I came back from Spain.
Okay.
And in order to, and re-enrolled in high school, and in order to make up the credits that I missed, so every state has a number of English, math classes. I took summer school the following summer. Only for, I had already had a really packed high school schedule, so it was, I think, it was really just the English classes. In order to get back into like the AP classes and the honors classes, the teachers made me take the exams for the time that I was absent. And I managed to pass.
Well, you managed.
I managed to figure it out.
So you went to the...
Then I went back. So I re-enrolled in high school. I do have a high school diploma.
And then you went to college.
And then I went to college and found out about this amazing fellowship.
Right.
And so the fellowship is really what brought me to the Foreign Service. So the Pickering Fellowship finds young people from diverse backgrounds, from lower socioeconomic status, and brings them into the Foreign Service. So the fellowship funded my last 2 years of college,
That's
full,
remarkable.
including housing and
Right.
everything, and 2 years of graduate school. And really trains you to join the Foreign Service. I still had to pass the Foreign Service exam, both the written and the oral exam. And for people who know about the Foreign Service, it's a very competitive
Very
process.
competitive.
So all fellows still have to pass that in order to finally make it into the Foreign Service. But the fellowship was life-changing. And that's so straight after college, I went to the Harvard Kennedy School of Government and earned my master's in public policy. And after that, I joined the Foreign Service.
What an inspiring
That was a
story.
really long
I
answer.
thought I knew everything. I didn't know about the high school. And wow. Very, very impressive. So then what happened?
So then what happened? Well, when I was in the Kennedy School, I was part of a program called From Harvard Square to the Oval Office that trains women how to run for elected political positions. It was a friend of mine who said, "Hey, Vanessa, why don't you join this program?" And that really had an impact on me. I met amazing women, dipped my toes into learning about what politics was. But then I knew I was joining the Foreign Service, so sort of put that aside. In the Foreign Service, I was a Pickering Fellow in Jakarta, Indonesia, and I was in the press office of the embassy there, and I led youth outreach initiatives, which was a really cool place to be, a really cool time to be in Indonesia, and I met really wonderful young people. And that sort of planted the seed for youth advocacy that has been something that I've been really passionate about. In the Foreign Service, you're constantly moving and changing jobs. So next I wore two hats in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. I was vice consul, and I conducted immigrant visa interviews. So I adjudicated immigrant visas, connecting families with loved ones, adjudicating for spouses who just got married. I did that for 1 year, and then the second year I was the Deputy Press and Cultural Attaché, and this is at the U.S. Consulate General in Ho Chi Minh City. And in that role, I continued with the passion for youth advocacy and created the first American Center in Ho Chi Minh City, which is sort of a library within the Consulate General. It's a library for students to come and learn English language resources. We had presentations about all sorts of different topics. I managed educational and cultural exchange programs, so like the Fulbright. We send Vietnamese students to the United States. The U.S. brings scholars to Vietnam. We did press stuff, and we even brought a jazz band from New York City to Ho Chi Minh City, and which was really an incredible, incredible
it all
situation.
sounds incredible. And then
hold on, I have one more tour in the Foreign Service, and then and then my last job in the Foreign Service was as a food security officer for multilateral organizations. So what that means is I represented the United States in multilateral, so that includes the UN, negotiations that had to do with food security. So I was at the food agencies in Rome, so it's the World Food Program, Food and Agriculture Organization, and IFAD, and then right here in New York, anytime that a resolution has anything to do with food security, I would be coordinating the U.S. position and
What a
negotiating
level
that
of
language.
responsibility.
Yeah.
And then,
And then, you know, when the Foreign Service was amazing and incredible and requires a level of flexibility and personal flexibility that became harder to have when I reconnected with my now husband, Reed, here in New York City. And after 4.5 years of long distance relationship, I decided to leave the Foreign Service and came to New York City.
It was time.
To stay. And that is when I became a New York City public school teacher.
Okay, and how long did you do that for?
I did that for 3 school years.
Okay, and how was that for you?
It was a really life-changing, impactful experience. I ended up kind of falling into becoming a math and science teacher, which is very different from sort of what my background is in,
I would say.
in government.
Right.
But it's hard to find science teachers in New York City. So I had a strong academic background in science, and so I was certified to teach science. And I taught in a middle school, 6th and 7th grade.
Those are challenging years.
Oh, I love those years. I love my students. They were incredible, although they're adults now. But it was a really impactful experience. Worked really hard. All of the teachers around me, we were all working really, really hard. It is a more than full-time job. And you're really invested in the community that you're teaching in and the students that I taught. So I calculated, I think I taught close to 500 students over the course of my time in the classroom. And you get to know them and you get to know their lives and their experiences, and it really represents all of New York.
Yes, and you become more than a teacher. Yes, and I know you did a wonderful job. And then it was time to move on?
I decided not to go back into the classroom, and for the past 6+ years at this point, I found a position where I'm the Senior Director of Strategy for the ASPCA, which is a large national nonprofit. And I get to use my strategic background that actually comes a lot from teaching. Backwards planning, goal-oriented, impact planning really came from my teaching, credentials and my teaching experience. And then coupling that with my policy background, my job now is to look at the larger landscape of the problem that we're trying to solve and evaluate how to make the biggest impact with the resources we have at our disposal. When you're working for a nonprofit, you have to sometimes be strategic about how you'll approach a problem and how you'll find solutions. So that has been an incredibly rewarding past 6 years, and has also allowed me to take on in my free time some political activities.
Vanessa is very, very active in our community. As president of the Lexington Democratic Club, she has done a fabulous job. And what inspires you to do that? And we're going to get to what you're currently going to do and working on. Yet, what inspires you to get into working in your community, getting involved? You're so passionate about it. What does that do for you? What is the reason you're doing all this?
I think it comes back to that original feeling of wanting to help people and wanting to make a difference. It's, life can be difficult sometimes. We are all overscheduled and have so many things to do, and we go about our day and there's things that we would like to just make a little bit easier for us. And I think getting involved in the community or in our political club, it makes me feel like I'm working toward a solution. And that's that same passion that I had in grade school when I wanted to make my school a better place.
When you raised your hand.
But it's the same feeling.
Yes.
It's, we can sit here and complain about, the problems around us, or we can try to do something. And I find that really motivating. I find that's what keeps me excited in the morning. Energized, and I'm not somebody who can just sit and watch things around me. I'm somebody who wants to be involved.
Well, your background certainly shows that. And why don't we talk a little bit about what you're currently pursuing?
So I am currently running for city council to represent the 4th district, which is the east side of Manhattan.
Yay.
Yay!
And why all of a sudden do you want to do this?
Again, I think it goes back to that desire to, make our city, make our community even better. It's a job that, it's a dream job. It's something I've always dreamed of doing. Again, I don't think growing up, I didn't think that elected politics was something for me. I didn't have, a famous family or a wealth that's what politicians look like on TV. But, being involved in New York City, you can see that in elected office, you can really make a difference. You can make sure our streets are safe. You can make sure our communities are accessible. You can ensure that kids have spots at the local schools, that there's enough spots for everybody in the community. And so I think, our involvement in the Lexington Democratic Club and just being really hyper-focused on the community, that it ended up sort of being a natural next step.
I would say natural next step. What advice would you give to a younger person that has these feelings of wanting to get involved, wanting to do more? Where do they start?
Honestly, I think it's about people. It's about talking to as many people. It's about sharing your interests with the people around you, finding commonalities. At the end of the day, that's the reason I'm doing this. I really love talking to people. I really love connecting with people and collaborating with people. And that's the path that led me here. So, I shared very briefly, it was talking to somebody in a theater class, which brought me to the State Department. It was talking with fellow teachers who brought me into politics. And I think, honestly, you can use the internet to get started and find your local Democratic Club or find your local community board and show up. But beyond that, it's really just saying hello to the person next to you, asking them questions, asking about their lives, and finding the ways to connect that will eventually sort of lead you on a path that makes sense for you.
Well, that's wonderful advice. It's harder for some than others, but very good advice. And when you look back now on your career and what you did and what you've been able to accomplish to date and what you would like to accomplish in the future, do you have pivotal moments that you can look at and say, oh, I'm so happy I did that?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think every time I've made a pivot in my career has been both a little scary, but also incredibly personally led to a lot of growth. So I guess, and something that has made me, the person that I am, with a lot of diverse interests and a lot of diverse skills. And so, I think not being afraid to take a chance career-wise and to follow a new interest, even if it's slightly different than what you were doing before.
Well, that's very brave, because a lot of people, that's very challenging for them. And as you're looking at your new endeavor, running for city council, what are the goals you have for yourself? What are you striving to do?
I think I'm really just striving to connect with as many diverse perspectives around the district as possible. I strongly believe in including people. I strongly believe in collaboration and building coalitions. And I also believe deeply that as a society, we have the solutions to all of the problems. We just need to make sure that we get all of those diverse perspectives on the table so that we can come to, compromise and solutions that work for everyone. So that's really my goal for the campaign, and that would be my goal as an elected official.
Yes, you address solutions in everything you've done. You always get out there and you try to solve the problem and solve it in a way that you bring other people in, you get to you collaborate, and you get results. So I wish you a lot of luck as you move forward. And in our final few seconds together, is there anything that you would like to share that you didn't have the opportunity to speak about today?
Just that you're a great interviewer. And everyone should be on Lynn Berger's show.
Thank you for that, Vanessa. And it was wonderful to speak with you today and even learn more. And going back to those earlier years really inspired me. So thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate it.